Man, I totally just blanked. I'm so fucking stoned right now. I apologize.
Dude, it's
I,
okay. I want
what,
It's okay.
what,
We're gonna talk about weed later. Anyway, but
okay,
I am curious, and
I'm
then
sorry, dude.
that'll be
I'm sorry.
wheelhouse, dude. You'll be in your wheelhouse in just a few minutes. Welcome to the Marinade, a free-flowing conversation about the creative process with creative people. This is episode 168, and our guest is Josh Morningstar. Josh is a singer and songwriter originally from Maryland who now makes his home in Knoxville, Tennessee. Even if you don't yet know the name, you probably know the work. Josh Morningstar is a heavyweight songwriter. He's co-written with the likes of Kendall Marvel and Hayes Carll, and has written several tunes for Cody Jinks, including the smash hit Must Be the Whiskey. Josh is a creative and personal inspiration. I'm incredibly grateful for this opportunity. We caught up with Josh via Zoom and connected just like old friends. I've been so excited to bring this one to you, everyone. My conversation with Josh Morningstar.
I know you love the snow, and I know a place to go and bail. Or maybe we can make a home in the next town that
Awesome.
we end up
Thanks,
going.
man. Thanks for doing this, Josh. I'm excited to talk to you.
Man, thanks for fucking having me on. I've been looking forward to this. I've listened to your podcast a bunch, man, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, man. Thank you.
It never blows my mind. Never ceases to blow my mind. Excuse me. To hear somebody whose work I respect as much as yours say that about the Marinade. So back at you, man. Thank you so much for listening. I am so grateful for the music that you make, and I'm really excited to dive into this record and your process. But just, dude, it again blows my mind that you listen, and I'm just so grateful.
Man, I enjoy it, man. Yeah, I do this for a living, but I also, I'm a fan of music. Music's my whole life, dude. So, and most things I do, they tie into what I do in some form or fashion. And it's a bit of a problem sometimes, but man, I say that to say I listen to all kinds of shit because it's my life, you know what I mean? And the Snyder episode was the first one.
Mm.
The first one that's what introduced me to your podcast. And then I went back and, I drive a lot, man. So I have a lot of time. So I went back and did the deep dive. And man, I really enjoyed your Willie T. Taylor one. Off the top of my head here. I think you did one. Was it your podcast that did like uh, I guess a deep dive on Brian Wilson? Was that you? Or am I
No,
getting you
I
confused?
wish. No,
Or Pet
I did it.
Sounds the record.
I did a deep dive on Brian Fallon and I. This would be fun for folks who might be new to the show and don't know about this episode. Brian Fallon and I did a deep dive on what we called Bob Dylan's mid period. So
Oh,
like some records from the 80s,
yeah.
Street Legal, Infidels, and I forget the other one. But no, I'd love to do a Brian Wilson one though. That would be incredible. I tell you what I did do. I have this series called Marinade Moments where I talk about these like shows. I've just been really like similar to you in my obsession with music and my passion for it. I've just over the years, man, gotten to go to so many shows because that's where my disposable income goes. Like
Yeah.
I spend money on shows and records. I don't have a very extravagant life. My car is, 10 years old. It's always been 10 years old. It's like
I know, brother. Trust me.
You know what I mean? Like I don't spend money on anything except experiences, getting to see live music and listen to music and buy physical copies and support the artists I love. So I saw Brian Wilson play Pet Sounds at the St. Augustine Amphitheater, and I did I wrote about it years ago. So I did a quick recap of that on the Marinade, but that
I
sounds like a
think
great idea.
Man, I think I'm getting that and something else I listen to intertwined.
Nice.
Yeah, and I'm sorry about that, man. But yeah, I've gone back and I've listened to a whole bunch of them, and
Awesome.
yeah, like I said, I'm grateful for you having me on, man. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, dude, and thank you for sharing your record with me. It's absolutely gorgeous, and it gives and gives and gives. And I think that's one of the themes to your music as I think about it and as I do the research and listen is how thoughtful you are with your writing. And so I want to start kind of broad and just sort of talk about this collection of songs more broadly, and then kind of, dive down a little bit. It seems like, from what I'm gathering, from what I've heard you say, what I've read, that you are sort of almost like manically writing. And is that an accurate way to talk about your process to start out?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I have a very addictive personality, man. And when I do something, I do it to exhaustive levels, and I have a bunch of mental health issues, and my mind never stops ever. Any thought that I have, man, it seems that I try to make them. It's a sickness, man. It's a sickness. But yes, that's a great way to put it.
Well, I think, all right. So if we could dive into that a little bit, I think I can relate. Which, as you know, we talk about mental health a lot on this show, and I had a therapy appointment this morning, and I was, kind of dealing with really processing intrusive thoughts lately. And what I've been able to do myself is I have been channeling that specifically into songwriting, which I take seriously as a hobby.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about what that looks like in practice for you. If you have all these, you're dealing with things, and you're constantly, you're kind of manically having these ideas. How do you balance that with the need to be a functioning human in society, right? Like, I know that's something that sometimes I struggle with. Like, I just want to sit in my room sometimes and just write for days. Because I don't have writer's block. I don't go through, I can't write a song as the first track talks about. What do you like? How does that look? What does that look like in practice in terms of harnessing all this energy and these ideas and balancing that with being a functioning human?
Man, I don't do very well at it at all. I yeah, I wish I did better, man. Weed helps, man. Weed helps. Weed helps, but I mean, it's tough for me. It is. I've done this a long time, man, and it's caused a lot of problems in my life because it is my life, and I wish I had a good answer for you, man, and was like, I'm a well-adjusted human being and I figured it out, but I don't, man. I don't. Yeah. I'm a crazy person. I say it in my live show. I say I'm a crazy person. I don't mean, haha, he's so crazy. I mean, we, the jury, find the defendant. That kind of crazy, right? I'm a crazy person, dude, and I wish I balanced it better, but I don't. And that's just, being real with you, man. I don't. I wish I did better.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and I almost, I hate that for you to some extent, but at the same time, I also appreciate your candor there, because I think a lot of times it'd be more tempting to be like, to say something to the effect of, well, I get by, I manage, and you do clearly you've write these incredible songs. You got a record on the way that's stunning from top to bottom.
Thank
Yeah, it really is. And I want to ask you specifics about it, but I still, it's refreshing to hear that you're like, man, I don't know if I'm doing so well with with the balance thing.
man, it's the truth, man. I'm not, and it's crazy. I do get writer's block from time to time, man. And when I'm in those periods, it's like I'm an asshole to be around. I don't want to talk to anyone. I definitely isolate, it's crazy how it really does affect every aspect of my life. But the flip side of that coin is if I'm having a good spell and I'm getting some songs and I'm digging them, then everything is roses, and I'm I'm a great guy.
Yeah.
So it's crazy how it really does affect every aspect, and I wish I did better. And because man, I say it in the first song on the record. There's a reason I put that song first, and it's because I figure if you can get through that song and what it is, because it's a crazy song, man. I can't write a song, right? Yeah. And I couldn't write the song one day, and I was like, well, let's see what happens if I write a song about not being able to write a song. So I put that first because I figure if you can get through that, you'll probably be able to get through the rest of the, what I mean? It's like, this is what it is, man. If you're down for the ride, come on. If not, we won't waste each other's time. But I say in that song, what do you do when your sense of self-worth becomes totally and completely tied to and attributed to your profession? And that's a real statement for me, man. If I can't write nothing, I suck and I'm a failure and I'm no good. Why would anyone ever listen? But then if I'm getting some, then I'm the best, man. It's crazy, the highs and lows. It's wild, man. It's wild.
Where does your kind of evaluation of the highs and lows come from? Is that self-imposed? Is that in some ways influenced by how the song is received? How do you know when you feel like this is where I need to be creatively?
Guy Clark said a song isn't finished until you play it for an audience.
One of my favorite quotes, dude. One of my favorite quotes.
So I mean, he would know, right?
Yeah.
So part of me, it leans towards that side of it where, if it's received good by an audience, then, I think it's a good song. But the truth, I'm a very distinct person and an artist. I'm definitely an acquired taste. I don't have a voice that's gonna grab you, blow your mind. You know what I mean? That's not who I am. You got to listen to what I'm saying, I think, if you're gonna dig what it is that I do. And man, I totally just blanked. I'm so fucking stoned right now. I apologize,
dude. It's okay. It's okay. We'll talk. We're gonna talk about weed later in this anyway. But I am curious. And then that'll be wheelhouse, dude. You'll be in your warehouse in just a few minutes. No,
I'm sorry, dude. No, we smoked. Just went and hit a dispensary, man. We just right before awesome. This. So I apologize, man. I just totally spaced.
It's all good, dude. I work with musicians all day, and I seem to only be attracted to women who smoke a lot of weed. So,
dang, brother, what is that, man? Is that some type of disorder? What the hell?
I don't know. I got a thing, I think, for women with tattoos that smoke weed. I don't know. And I don't smoke because it just doesn't agree with me. I wish I could. I wish that was my my thing.
Have you tried edibles?
Yeah. I mean, just one of the worst experiences of my life was on edibles, and then one of the best experiences of my life was on edibles. So I tend to be a little gun shy on anything I don't know. It took me forever to try psilocybin, and once I did, I was like, well, where's this been all my life?
Yeah,
Um,
amen, brother. Have you
yeah,
done DMT,
no,
brother? Oh my
yeah.
good man, it changed my whole outlook on everything as far as like the afterlife and what happens when we're done here. The, man, it's insane, and I highly recommend it to everyone. Everyone.
Can you say more about that? Because there are some songs later on in the album that kind of get to some existential questions and get to death is at least lingering, right? If
Oh
not
yeah,
at the forefront, right? Even as a ghost, that whole sort of what I guess is your A side going into B side, even as a ghost and to seek the devil. Um, like as I listen to those songs, especially even as a ghost, like there's a lot of layers to that song, but
thank you,
it,
man.
yeah, but it makes me, it's existential for me as I listen to it because fucking everything is. But did DMT or anything else like for you, any practices you have, maybe it is weed that like help you to process sort of those bigger existential questions and mortality?
So when I so DMT, I'd imagine most people listening to your podcast know what it is, but if you don't, DMT, dimethyltryptamine, is in anything living, from the leaves to the animals to us. Anything that's living has dimethyltryptamine in it, and it comes from our pineal gland. The thing is, we don't know what our pineal gland does, and it's theorized that this chemical is only released when you're born and when you die. And I'm pretty sure when I was what what you experience when you do DMT is the process of dying. Like I was totally and completely aware. It only lasts about 15 minutes. It's not a long trip at all. Um, and it's different from like mushrooms and acid in that you go, excuse me, you go somewhere else while
Mm,
also being completely aware of where you are. Like, when you're tripping, right? You look at your front yard, you know it's your front yard, right?
right. Yeah.
DMT is the only thing I've ever done where I was somewhere else. I was not here. My body was here, but I was not here. Even though, like I said, I was aware I was on a couch in Kansas City. I was totally I was somewhere else, man. And I'm pretty sure that what I experienced and what you experienced during that is the process of dying, what happens when we die. And it changed everything. It changed everything. I've never felt so much. When I came out of it, the only thing I could say was love. Like, I've
Wow.
never felt so. There's no words to describe it, man, and words are my business. But anyway, um, my questions after that experience, my questions went from what what happens after we die to why. What is this? Or why are we here? You know what I mean? My question went from what to why. And that's the question that I've been pondering on, because I know that what we are is not what we are, if that makes sense. I experienced what we are, and it is not this. So now I want to know why this. What is this?
Okay,
It's wild.
that helps me understand your writing quite a bit. That helps me understand I think it helps me understand this record even better. That
Cool.
why it has to seep into the work that you're doing.
Mhm.
It has to permeate everything you do.
Yeah, it does. I guess when I stop and think about it, I've never really thought about that specific thing, but yeah, it does. I can totally see that. Thank you for helping me come to that realization.
Oh, my pleasure. Um, and I didn't expect we would be here, but I'm really grateful that we are.
Yeah, man, I've said at my shows, you never know what you're gonna get. You never know where we're going. Yeah, I appreciate the assistance with the self discovery. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely, dude. All right, so with this record then, because as I hear it, it's sort of like I said, there's that sort of A to B switch almost, and I don't know if I'm interpreting everything right here, but it's almost like it sort of progressively gets a little bit more I don't know, heavy might be the right word. I don't know if heavy is the right word, but it starts out with like, so for example, Anywhere with You is this just like almost, I mean, I hate to say perfect because I don't want to put that pressure on anybody that makes anything, but this damn near perfect love song that
Thanks.
that is fitting my life right now so beautifully and something that
Uh,
that I needed, dude. And so,
I love that, man. I love
yeah,
that. Thank you.
yeah. And it actually came on the other day, and my love was sitting next to me and listening to it with me because I burned the record to a CD
Yeah,
that you sent me, and I put it in my car and I drive around. That's how I like to consume
I love it, dude.
records,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. And that came on and she was like, "Whoa, what's this?" And so I explained I tried to explain like who you are and an elevator pitch, which is not easy to do, man.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Um but it's sort of like there's those songs, and then when when I get to the sort of the from To Seek the Devil, well, really from Even as a Ghost, Even as a Ghost on, there's a different way my brain sort of needed to listen to the record.
Mhm.
And I don't mean that I was passively listening before and more actively listening later. It's almost just like there was a shift in the way my brain needed to access these songs. And I wonder if
Yeah,
that's something that you were intentional about or that you're aware of.
I am aware of it, and it makes me feel good that you picked up on that, man. Thank you. Uh,
Yeah.
I figured. So I figured at the beginning of the record, like I said, it starts with the "I can't write a song." So I figure if a person can get through that, they're probably going to be okay
Yeah.
with
It's
the rest
very
of it. You know what I mean?
it's very Todd Snyder-esque, by the way, which I think is part of
Uh,
what really reeled me in.
Man, that's cool. I mean, like I said, I'm a music fan, and everybody has influences, and he's definitely one of mine. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, he's brilliant. But anyway, um, so I figure if you're gonna get through that, you'll probably be all right with the rest of it. And the 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 record's kind of like a day in the life, and I don't mean that as far as the story the songs tell. It's more the feeling of the record from start to finish. Like there's not a cohesive story running through the record per se. It's more the overall feeling, I guess, of the record as you listen to it as a whole is a lot like me and my day. I wake up in the morning. I get up super early. I'm very energetic, in the morning, and then as the day goes on and my mind starts working, then it kind of things change. Things change, and by the end of it, Baltimore Jack is the last song on the record. It's the only one I didn't have either wrote by myself or have a hand in writing with someone else. And that song was written by Rory Carroll. Rory is an amazing songwriter artist. I actually met her. I was opening up for Snyder a couple shows, and she was on the road with him at the time. And I just fell in love with this song, and I'd always wanted to cut it, and I was waiting on her to cut it, and I've been waiting forever just because I love the song. And when it was time to do this record, I reached out again and said, "Hey, can I do it?" She was grateful enough to let me do it. And but I say that to say that's a very calm, like peaceful sounding song. Even though it's a sad story, it's a very calm, pretty song. And the song before that, Eyes on Forever, is kind of like the, you know, right before I lay down at night, trying to talk myself down off the ledge. Everything's okay. Everything's going to be okay. Trying to prepare my mind for bed. And then, Baltimore. So it's like the feeling of the record from start to finish is pretty much a day in the life, like I said. And I'm glad you picked up on that, man. Thank you.
Thank you. And my pleasure. And thank you. I'm interested in that day then, as someone who has written these incredible songs and this record is a great example of your songwriting prowess. I wonder, in that day, like, I'm really fascinated with, and I especially fascinated with it right now because I've dedicated this summer and I've been very vocal about dedicating it to creative work. I'm an English teacher by day. I have summers off and I'm treating my creative work as a job this summer because I got a paycheck and I got time,
Yeah, man.
So,
Hell yeah.
so yeah, I'm sitting down to the page every day. I'm writing songs. I'm writing short stories. I'm working on the marinade. I'm just doing the fucking work. And it's been amazing because long term, that's my dream. And I'm always fascinated by people who do it. So during your day, like, you just went through and kind of gave us a little bit of a window into some of the obstacles you run into and overcome each day. And you've been open about the fact that you have been in recovery from heroin addiction and gone through so many challenges. Like, those obstacles as they present themselves creatively, what do you do? Right. So you wake up, you're on fire, you're ready to go, right? You wake up with that energy early in the morning, you're ready to go. And then at some point, you weren't specific, but you said there's sort of like a change at some point in your day. Like, what do you do as you run up against whatever obstacle you might run up against? What rituals do you have to make sure that you're staying on that train of, being creative and keeping yourself happy and healthy?
I mean, that's a struggle in and of itself too. On a good day, I'll get up in the morning and write a song. And then, that's all like, I pace a lot. My
Mm.
my brain's always going a million miles an hour, so I pace a lot. And when I'm being creative, it's like this. You use the phrase manically writing. That's how it feels. Like I'm very like anxious and excited, and my body kind of gets tense as I'm pacing because I'm just it's this excitement, man. That there's no feeling like creating, man. And I know that you can understand, but when those words are coming, man, and you're digging what they're doing, or what they're saying, and you're liking the way things are going. That's one of my most favorite feelings, man.
Yeah.
And uh, that tends to, it's I'm pacing, I'm tense, I'm excited, so that kind of tends to take it out of me a little bit. So, and I just feel tired afterwards, because it's like you're channeling shit, man. Like Towns Van Zandt, he always thought sky songs, they fell out of the sky, and they were a gift from God. He was just lucky enough to be holding a pencil. And I think there's some truth in that, man. Like, I know I know what my thoughts are and how I am as a person when I'm not writing a song. And when I am writing a song, it's like I'm someone else, man. And I don't know where they come from. Like, yeah, obviously a lot of them come from life experiences, but I mean, as far as putting them together, making them rhyme in a clever way that hadn't been said, all that stuff, man. That's what I mean when I say where they come from. I don't know what that is, man, but I do think there's some truth in that they come from somewhere else. Whether that's channeling an energy in the universe or something, I don't know. But I say that to say it when I'm done, I'm kind of exhausted, both mentally and physically. Um, so that's kind of, at the beginning, it's up tempo and fun, and then as it goes on, it gets a little more contemplative and just a little, like you said, heavier, a little heavy.
Okay, that's really helpful. Just as I think about the creative process, especially having the time that I just mentioned on my hands, because I realized, and this hasn't been long, it hasn't even been a week that I've been on vacation, summer vacation, and had this space and time and the support of the people around me too. That's pretty key. Is like there's so many life responsibilities that sometimes can either weigh down or become uh sometimes a crutch or an excuse too to not sit down at the page.
Yeah.
But um one thing that energy thing that you just spoke to of how you kind of feel drained after you've done, especially if you've made something you're real when you knock it out of the park. I feel like for me
Yeah.
at least, if I crush something, I'm just like I'm beat. Like if I write something that I'm really proud of, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
And so finding one of the things I've been trying to structure in my day, I'm curious what you think about this as an approach, is trying to forcing myself to just sort of lay down or meditate or, stop trying to do stuff for a minute, which is not something that I do well.
I understand. Yeah. Man, I think that's a great idea. Because it's going to take you a second to come out of create, creative mode and let your mind rest for a second. And yeah, I think that's a good idea, man.
Baseball has been my thing. Is like that's one of the things that relaxes me more than anything. And so I watch a little bit of baseball and just sort of like let that be meditative for me for a minute. And sometimes I fall asleep while I'm watching it, and then I'm able to get up and then start making. That's been kind of my process so far.
Man, that's awesome. I'm going a lot, and most of the time when the games are on, I'm at a venue, or when I'm home, I'm doing other stuff. But one of my most favorite things to do is go to baseball games.
Mm.
Um, I actually I have three sons. I took them to a ball game this past Friday.
Nice.
Yeah, the town I'm from just got it's the
Uh-huh.
Atlantic League, excuse me. Some type of pro league, I don't know, but they built them a new stadium and stuff. It was a good time, man. But I try to catch a couple games every year. I love baseball.
That's awesome. What other
Mm,
kinds of things like just being someone who is so serious about his work and so passionate about it and so focused on it. What are some other things like baseball? Like what are some things that you're able to do to sort of occupy your mind or that bring you joy outside of the work that you do so manically?
man, I wish I knew because I do it more often. Um, that's again one of my biggest problems, man. Is everything that I enjoy is um, somehow connected to what I do. So it's a real problem for me. It all just feeds into each other. I don't really have hobbies, I wish I did. I went out and bought stand up paddle boards last year, used them twice.
Mm.
I wish I knew, man. I wish I knew. It would probably help me to be a little more well rounded as a person if I was able to have something to take my mind off of it. It's one of the things I've struggled with, and I mean, I've talked to people about it. I've asked specifically, like Robert Earl or Jinx, or I've asked so many people, what do you guys do to take your mind off this? And I mean, it's a pretty standard answer. It's hard, man. It's hard to do. Hard to do.
All right, so you just mentioned, a couple of incredible, well-respected songwriters. You've written for and with so many folks. I when I had Hayes Carl on the show, I asked him about writing with you, and he had such good things to say, such glowing things to say about you.
He's a good
Um,
dude.
man, he's so sweet. He was so generous to me in our interview, and was definitely like a white whale kind of dream guest.
He's incredible, man. That was kind of a bucket list for me, getting to do that a couple times.
Well, that's what I'm curious about with all these amazing people you get to work with. Like, who are the people that, to me, when I get to, and you are no exception to this rule. Like everybody that I have had on the show, almost to a person, I can think of one or two people that were maybe not as pleasant as I would have liked them to be, but nobody's been a dick. And this whole time I've done this, and most people are like you, like incredibly open and welcoming and sweet and generous. But I'm curious for like folks listening when you're talking about people like Hayes Carl, Cody Jenks, Kendall Marvel, Brent Cobb, Robert O'Keen, all these folks that like you've been around or open for or worked with. Who are the people that people would want to know like are just the sweethearts, right? The people that like are fun to be around and like are easy to root for.
Man, I've been so lucky, man. I don't have a whole lot of that guy was a dick stories.
Nice.
The first person that ever had any type of, I guess, quote unquote name in the music business to ever give me a chance, was Shooter Jennings, man. He took me on tour with him and his dad's band, Waymore's Outlaws. I opened a shit ton of those shows for them back in like whenever that was, 2013, 14, somewhere around it, whenever they were doing that tour. And I mean, are you familiar with Billy Don Burns?
No, I'm not.
Oh man. So I'm so excited that you don't know Billy Don. Billy Don is kind of like my big brother, man. He's been on the road for 50 years. He's had Willie cuts, Tanya Tucker cuts. Did you listen to her newest record?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Okay, he wrote "When the Rodeo's Over, Where's the Cowboy Go?"
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So that's Sammy Kershaw, Mel Tillis, Cody, Whitey, Coulter Wall, all kinds of people have recorded Billy Don tunes, man. And he's my big brother. My favorite record of his is called Heroes, Friends, and Other Troubled Souls.
Can't wait.
But you can't go wrong. Any of them are incredible. Nights When I'm Sober is incredible. That was the one that introduced me to him. And then first time I ever met him, he had a song called Honky Tonk Singer that I have tattooed across my chest. The first time I ever met him, he was playing at Layla's on Lower Broadway in town. And at the end of his set, I just walked up to him and opened up my shirt. He'll tell the story. He'll say, and it was then I knew I liked that kid. But what he actually said to me was, it's normally women that do this. But yeah, he's incredible, man. You should really check him out. But I've been real lucky. Hayes is a super sweet guy, man. I love him to death. Cody Jenks he's one of my best friends, man. Aside from, he's done 16 songs now that we recorded together. 13 of them have come out. 3 of them should be out sometime. But aside from any of that, man, he's just one of the most genuine people I've ever met and has been since the day I met him almost 10 years ago now.
God, it's good to hear.
I can't overstate how much of a sweetheart he is, man. And the venues have gotten bigger, but his head has stayed the same, man.
Amazing.
The same guy for as long as I've known him. And he's been so good to me, man. But even if he had never recorded, I was saying this before he ever recorded anything I'd written. We knew each other for years before that happened. And I said it then. Yeah. He's just a super sweetheart of a guy. Man, I'm sorry. I'm excited you don't know Billy Don. You should please dive into that, man.
Oh, I'm stoked. Please. Yeah. No, I'm really looking forward to it. In fact, it's funny, like the back of my mind, I'm planning my evening. I'm going to see the Stones and Tyler Childers tonight. But they're playing in Orlando. And Tyler's opening.
That's awesome.
I know. So I got to listen to the new Stones record, so I'm at least a little prepared.
Have you heard it yet? You haven't heard it yet? Man, I like it better than anything they've done in a couple of years.
Cool.
Yeah, man. Like it. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, they're the Rolling Stones, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
like anything that they do pretty much. But man, I dug it.
Well, it's I went to see Dylan on this most recent tour, and it was probably the most powerful show I've ever seen.
Brother, I did too, man. I did
Yeah,
and had the exact same feeling. It was incredible.
yeah, yeah,
Had
and
you seen him before?
no, that was my only time.
Same. Yep, same.
Because I'd heard everybody say, "Don't see Dylan,"
Yeah.
he's don't do it. And then one night I was like, "Fuck it." Like if it's bad, then it's what everybody said it was, and it doesn't change how I feel about Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
And instead, I had the most incredible spiritual experience. I just went into it going, that Dylan show. They put the Dr. Phillips Center here in Orlando, and if you ever have a chance to play that venue, jump on it. It's
Really?
yeah, it's like stunning concert hall. So I give you an example of the acoustics in there. I'm an obsessive Jason Isbell fan and have seen God knows how many shows since 2007. I've been seeing Isbell solo and back in the Truckers days. I saw him with the Truckers. Like I've seen so many shows, and almost always, even though these days they do a great job of dialing the sound, and he's very serious about that kind of thing. Like I got old man ears, and like I always wear
Yeah.
earplugs. I
Same.
was sitting like eighth row at the Walt Disney Theater, and Jason Isbell and the 400 unit are playing. This is 2018, and dude, I didn't even mess with my earplugs because the
Wow.
sound is so dialed in. It sounded perfect. Nothing
Man,
sounded too
that's all.
loud, right? Like this,
Yeah.
crushing rock and roll band, and they just have it figured out. But Dylan played there, and it was a spiritual experience. It was the most beautiful concert I've ever seen.
Man, I if there was a better one, I can't think of it off the top of my head, man. I saw him at the Louisville Palace, which is an old theater,
Mhm.
and he was kind of pissed off at the time. I thought where I was sitting, and we were pretty much dead center, however many rows back. Uh, but I thought it sounded incredible from where I was sitting. But there were a couple times that because I mean, it's the weirdest, it's the damnedest thing, man. You can't really take your eyes off of him.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy. But so you would see him like pointing over to the sound guy and getting frustrated. But man, there's just there's something different around that guy.
Yeah.
There's definitely there.
Yeah, and that's what I say when I say that's what I mean when I say it was a spiritual experience. It was not like I think music is my church anyway. I know that sounds kind of cliche, but it's just the truth, and that's where
It's the truth, man.
yeah, I feel closer to God or whatever
Yeah.
kind of higher power there is when I'm watching live music with other people especially, and with people I love even more. But that was out of body kind of thing. And that was at a time when I told you I don't smoke, and I drink a little bit,
Hmm?
and every once in a while I fuck with psilocybin, but that was at a time when I was going through some really heavy stuff. So I was just not drinking at all. I was like barely putting caffeine in my body, just like completely as clear headed as I possibly could have been.
Yeah.
And just can't describe anything else I've experienced, even outside of live music, that felt quite like that.
Yeah, man, that's so beautiful. That's those shows are what it's about, man. That's what we strive to do.
Yeah.
Everybody that's what very few can, man. But how beautiful when it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man,
And it's crazy because to watch a man, it's just like a lounge act. You know what I mean? Like his
yeah.
band is pretty stripped down in comparison to what it's been at times. Like he's just up there, him and his fucking piano singing these songs that don't sound anything like you know them, but man, they're fucking incredible.
Yeah. 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 Well, I brought all that up because that the latest record of his I had only listened to like once, but in preparation for that, my friend Patrick Hagerman told me he's like, first of all, you got to go to see this tour. Secondly, listen to the new record because he's gonna play the whole damn album. And I'm really glad I did because it's a stunning record. And then live, it's even more powerful. So like tonight, I'm gonna have to do at least a couple runs through Hackney Diamonds before
Yeah,
I go into that show tonight. But that brings me to kind of like how we tend to wrap these up, which is, what you're getting down on. So like, what art has you inspired at the moment? What have you been listening to? What have you been? Is there a show you've been watching? I don't know, the painting you've seen lately, book you're reading. Like, what art has you fired up at the moment?
man. So 2 or 3 times a year, I will revisit the Grateful Dead.
Hmm.
I started listening to Grateful Dead when I was in 6th grade through a buddy of mine named Tweety, and just thought it was the coolest fucking thing, and have always loved their music and can speak at length about the band and the show. You know what I mean? I'm a Dead.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at currently. Um, I've been jamming my playlist is just called The Dead, and it's just all kinds of shit. Uh, so that's where I'm at right now. Like if you ask what I've been listening to the last
Yeah.
week or so, it's been The Dead. Yeah.
Does
Um,
anything from that, and I might be missing the influence in your work from the
it,
Dead. Does it permeate your work?
it, I think more lyrically than in the songwriting or, um, the sound of the music or whatever genre you want to label it. I love jam band shit, but I don't make that music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, but the Dead's a little bit of everything. But man, I would like to say that you know you some of the songs of mine might make you feel the same as when listening to the Dead. I don't know if that's true or not. I think the biggest influence on me from the Grateful Dead is probably Robert Hunter,
Hmm.
and it's not you know it's not in every song thing, but I think there's probably some lines in there that are Hunter-esque,
Mm,
just in my catalog in general, not necessarily just this record, but in my catalog in general.
yeah.
So, but aside from that, man, I've been listening to. So I was talking to. It's funny, he's come up a couple times now, but I was talking to Snyder the other day, and he had asked me if I had ever heard of Jesse Fuller. Are you familiar with Jesse Fuller?
No.
Old black blues or old black folk singer, man. And it's funny, I was listening to it, and I messaged him back and said, I think Bob Dylan's turning into Jesse Fuller, because he sounded like this for 20 years in the San Francisco Bay Blues. And Snyder was like, he agreed with me. He was like, yeah, shit, you're right. Wow. So I've been listening to Jesse Fuller. Um, what else, man? What else?
You've given me good
Uh,
homework, man. I'm excited to dive into Billy Don Burns and Jesse
oh
Fuller.
man, I mean, you can't go wrong. I can't overstate, man. And he never had that big hit. You know what I mean? If you
Yeah.
go on, if you go on YouTube, there's a documentary for a trailer, um, that for that was going to be made about him. But anyway, uh, and he says, I was never famous, but I like that I was half-ass famous with the writers in Nashville. And that's true.
Wow.
Everybody from a certain era, everybody knows who Billy Don Burns is, just not the general public. But Shooter actually says in the trailer for that documentary, um, if you could put him on a giant speaker that everyone in the world could hear, he'd be flying around in private jets. But
Holy shit.
yeah, he's fucking, he's, mm-hmm. The song Willie had a record in the '80s called "Born for Trouble," and he did a song of Billy Don's called "I Don't Have a Reason to Go to California Anymore." But it was as Billy Don was leaving Sony, or I'm sorry, not Billy Don, Willie was leaving Sony, so the record never got pushed. So kind of died on the vine. But he's got a couple Willie cuts, man. He's a great one, man. He did a record. He produced a record on Johnny Paycheck in prison that Merle Haggard came out and sang a couple songs on.
Hmm.
Billy Don produced the record. He had a publishing company with Hank Cochran, which Hank Cochran's one of the most legendary songwriters in country music history. Him and Billy Don had a production company for 7 years, and Billy Don produced the Johnny Paycheck prison record. You can find some video of that online. It never came out because they had a falling out, and Hank owned the tapes, and then his wife. Anyway, it was a whole thing. But I can't overstate how how badly you need to listen to Billy Don Burns.
Awesome. Good. Well, I'm looking forward to that homework. And man, for folks listening, your homework is as soon as Josh's record comes out, just listen and listen and listen. Because like I said before, when I listened to it the first time, it grabbed me. And I knew it would, just because I was familiar with your work and was really since you reached out to me a few years ago and just you said some kind words to me about the Marinade, and I was like, all right, I need to get into this guy and see what he's all about. And when I did, I was immediately impressed and taken by your work. But then when I listened to this one time through, I went, oh shit, I got to give this some time. Like the first time through grabbed me, but it was clear that I was going to hear more and more and more as I listened. And that's been the case, man. And so, for
Thanks,
folks,
man.
yeah, just thank you. It's a gorgeous piece of work, and thank you for this record. Thank you for being so supportive of the Marinade, and thank you for this homework you've given me that I'm really excited about. This has been a total delight, man, as I expected it would be. So thank you so much, Josh.
Man, thank you. I've really enjoyed talking to you. I hope we get to do it again. And man, I hope the Stones and Tyler are incredible. That's a hell of a bill.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, I'm stoked. I have no doubt it's going to be awesome, and I will be reporting to the masses on my social media about it. Probably
Awesome.
too much tonight. All right, buddy.
Yeah, I don't blame you, man. I don't blame you. Be safe, brother. Thank you.
Thanks, man. You too. Have a great night.
You too.
And you're glad we left our troubles behind us in the rearview mirror.
Josh Morningstar, y'all. Thank you so much, Josh. Thank all of you for listening. JoshMorningstarMusic.com for all things Josh. His wonderful self-titled record is available on June 28th, 2024. And the song you're hearing in this episode is from that wonderful record. It's called Anywhere With You. I absolutely adore this record and that song. I really appreciate Josh's candor in this episode and the way that he has connected with me and the Marinade. MarinadePodcast.com for all things The Marinade. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, Spoutable, Twitter, Blue Sky, Mastodon, all the things. Subscribe and give us a 5-star rating on your podcast app. Tell a friend about the show. These are all free ways to support The Marinade. Go do that right now while you're listening, please. It makes a big difference for us and costs so little of your time and effort. If you really like what we're doing, please consider joining our Patreon community. Y'all, for just $2 a month, you can gain access to Patreon exclusive content like our show, Jason's Journey, where I talk about the moments that shape my creative life and provide a window into the process of making the Marinade. One of the best days of the month for me is recording What We're Getting Down On with my dear friend, the brilliant and hilarious Peter Haraldson. That's about the art that has us fired up at the moment. Y'all, you can now try a free trial of Patreon. See if you like it. No pressure. Try it for 7 days. Set a reminder on your phone in case you want to cancel, and keep going if you dig it. If you want to support the show financially, but you don't want to commit to a monthly subscription, I totally get that too. You can Venmo or PayPal us. It's just at the Marinade, and all the money goes right back into the making of the show. I am enjoying the last couple of days of my Grounded Summer tour. It actually technically is over. I'm back in Orlando, and I'm happy to be here, but I'm also so grateful to have gotten to go through the South and get back to my roots and cover a couple of music festivals, including Bonnaroo. Second time in a row we got to cover Bonnaroo, and that happens because of our Patreon patrons. But above all, I'm just thankful that you listen and spread the word about the Marinade. And until next time, go out and create something. Cheers, y'all.